So, I don't know. What else we going to chat about today? I know yesterday was a good discussion. We chatted a bit about immigration for those who might have missed it.
Yes.
Had in the studio here none other than the Honorable Mario Ebanks. Again, talking a little bit from this immigration issue, specifically touched on rollover being extended. Again, that's up to 9 years now.
Yes.
And then in addition to that, the sort of mandatory interjection of a rollover for any person who is working on a permit that wants to transition from one job to another.
Uh-huh.
And again, that one remains to be seen exactly what was trying to be achieved with that, but it should be interesting. And want the public to know, we're going to try to see if we can actually get one or two other persons here in the studio to continue the immigration discussion, and hopefully something like that can occur next week.
Yes. No, I think that would be excellent. I mean, the white paper is rather extensive, and it was really wishful thinking that we might be able to, dispense with it thoroughly.
Who could ever have thought such a thing?
Who could ever have thought such a thing? Yes, it was me. I thought perhaps we might be
Are we
able
streaming,
to,
by the way?
I was asked that question.
Oh, okay,
and,
gotcha.
It's been adjusted, but hopefully we are streaming now.
Okay, great.
I haven't received any feedback to my follow-up questions. But yeah, no, I look forward to our continued discussions on the immigration transition white paper. But we also talked yesterday, I mean, on the one hand, this is the hand we've been dealt in terms of the white paper and the timing, and now is when the public consultation is, occurring. And of course, it was arguably closed off on the 3rd of March, the same time when the...
I want to challenge whether it's closed off. I know that there's normally a period of time. Like there's a window of 28 days, I think, now.
Yes.
It used to be 21, I think.
Yeah, it's 28 days now.
But I don't necessarily know if I would have to check the specifics on that.
It might be worth following. I thought that's what the understanding was from our guest yesterday when he said that he was obviously challenging the bringing of it, and then of course closing off the consultations. I understood closing off it. I may have misunderstood.
No, I think he may have said that, but I'm just wondering the specific regulation or legislation. I would imagine would probably say that that's kind of the standard time frame, or even maybe a minimum of 28 days.
Yeah.
But I would like to believe that in the absence of something actually happening, especially now that you're into an election, that period of time just automatically and naturally extends, and people still have time to educate themselves and to make their submissions.
Yeah. Well, there's, again, a standard accepted practice that says that the previous government shall not tie the hands of the next government.
Right.
And one might argue the presentation of this white paper, though it occurred under this last administration, it might very well prove to be useful information for the next government should they decide to pick up immigration reform as a priority. So that's why we say, to a certain extent, we might be engaging in a discussion that is, an exercise in futility. But I also believe that, any discussion to talk about matters relevant to legislation and change of times is always timely. So we continue to chat about it until somebody tells us to stop talking about it. We're going to keep talking about it.
Oh, well, I don't know. There's a lot of people who want to tell you to stop talking. Pick the topic, but I look forward to hearing from them. I see that the BRAC has had a fire, the BRAC dump fire. So we're not the only one having dump fires over here. Couldn't be deliberate, could it, Austin? It's like, it's piling up too much. Let's light a fire.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me back in the day, hotels burning down, strangely enough, I know of at least two. Probably know a few more. But, ladies and gentlemen, number to call here in the studio, 745-2626. If you have something you want to chat about before Austin and I go off on, some kind of a tangent, make sure and give us a call. We did get a call from Mr. Lawrence the other day.
Yes, we did get a call from Mr. Lawrence yesterday.
He gave a good piece of input as well in terms of the immigration law. We appreciate that.
Yes. And
didn't we get something from Mr. Simamba as well?
Mr. Simamba, yes, he did offer up a commentary, though.
You can't remember what that was.
I can't remember precisely what
it was.
It
always a good one either way.
Well, he usually does make very sensible recommendations. I know he did break it down for us, suggesting that the changes in the white paper, may not require, again, focus on just the Immigration Transition Act, but a number of small but very important changes in things like the Public Authorities Law and a few others. He was, again, very technical to a certain extent, but on point as he usually is with his remarks. I'd have to go back and listen to precisely what was said to before I'd be forced to quote him.
Yeah.
One of the topics that came up, of course, Wednesday was Ash Wednesday, public holiday here in the Cayman Islands, and when we started, we asked the question, what was traffic like, for road users, and we had one comment suggesting that it wasn't bad at all. That they got to the bypass in 15 minutes, and a short time after that they were at the fairgrounds, and parking was a breeze, etc., etc. Well, a post was made sharing an opposing view on social media, particularly the platform of Facebook, and whilst it wasn't shared directly with us, it was shared in obviously the public domain for general conversation, and I thought it might be interesting to share at least another person's viewpoint, because I have heard mixed reviews in terms of what was the state of traffic and how well we did.
Well, even with me, there's a lot of traffic.
So if, with your permission, it's a little stray away. It's not good news, but like I said,
not necessarily bad news.
It's not necessarily bad news either. I mean, again, we have another opportunity to get it right. So the writer says, this is disgusting and disgraceful, in capital letters. This mess you have caused with the traffic. No one can get into the park without circling the island. Go on the new road, circle back on Hurst Road to Shamrock Road. Biggest annual event of the year that we hold once a year, and you can't get it right. Congratulations, you made it impossible to attend the show, support local, and have a family day out due to the great inconvenience and poor planning with parking and road management. A commentator to that same post added their own version, saying, waited in traffic for over an hour and a half and still reached nowhere near the ag grounds. I gave up and basically turned around. The road management is horrible. How can this be family friendly when kids have to endure hours in traffic? It is a disservice to families who are just frustrated with attempting to get to the location, and a further disservice to the vendors and artisans who look forward today to generate some income. So despite the fact that thousands, according to today's Compass,
did they specify a number?
They just said thousands. I didn't get a
someone gave me
some,
I don't know, incredible number. Of like 10,000 persons were there. That's what I heard.
No.
Well, I'm just telling you. I'm just giving it to you as cheap as I got it.
As you bought it, huh?
Yeah, I'm just telling you.
Yeah, no, I heard. I read thousands. Let's see if I can find it. I'll share it with you. Yeah, thousands throng agriculture show as sun shines is the title of the article. And let's see. I never saw a hard number, and I doubt they gave a hard number.
Yeah. Well, apparently they can only count numbers at political meetings.
Speaking of which, you have one of those on Saturday, but you're going to have to check out social media for that because, well, no one's asked us our opinion.
Well, I got mixed reviews as well about the art show. I mean, I had someone who told me, it was no problem. There was some parking at different, side venues and got shuttled in. But I can tell you, my experience was I was sitting in the traffic from 10-ish, and it went on for definitely over an hour. And I saw quite a few people turning away. I would imagine either trying to find another route, cut 5 minutes of traffic or something, or actually just pulled out and said, hey, I'm going home. I can't waste my time with this. Well, it is unfortunate.
I stand corrected. The article in today's Compass
does give a number.
Drop a number, a range, mind you.
Okay.
Rather wide delta.
Good.
But it says officials said they estimated between 6,000 and 8,000 people could pass through the gates before the show ended.
Somebody was selling tickets, I'm sure.
Now,
someone was counting at the gate.
You would think the ticket sales would be the ultimate, leveler here, but I suspect in this instance where they say there could be, maybe they were counting cars in the lineup as well, and obviously didn't count the ones, as the last writer indicated, that just gave up and turned around. So not everybody was thrilled with the traffic management, again, for the Ag Show. The writer makes one genuine, legitimate point. This is not our first rodeo.
Right.
Pardon the pun in the case of the Ag Show.
Sure.
You do this every single year I mean, you would think that by now, again, within reason, because when you have 6,000 people in their cars, and of course in Cayman, 6,000 people does equate into 6,000 cars because carpooling is a mystery. But when you have 6,000 cars at any one time on the road at the same time, you're gonna have problems in this country.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would take this opportunity to say that, you know, I keep making my critique about the environmental extremists, but again, this would probably be a great time to be having an east-west arterial that extends all the way, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you could be having one road to deal with the traffic while the other ones just deal with the agriculture show. Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah.
You know, just a thought.
Yeah.
Again, another reason for us to try to encourage there has to be a balance. I want to keep saying that. There has to be a balance, of course, but come on. We need a little bit of development. You can't sit there forever and say Cayman's not growing and that one vein, that one artery is going to cut it. I don't think so. So see if we can we need to get the NCC in here as well. We had Mr. McLean. I really want to hear some more about this NCC, the National Conservation Council.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. What is this?
745-2626 is the number. We got about 5 minutes left. Time in studios, 4:53. Just about 5 minutes before we have to pause and check in with the top of the hour news.
And get on a topic
by the BBC. And then again, certainly if there are topics that you want to chat about, we'd love to hear from you. If we move away from the ag show traffic and nobody wants to jump on that bandwagon, here's one that was also in the headlines this week, and it hits you in the pocketbooks. Egg prices apparently are at record highs in supermarkets in the Cayman Islands, amid signs that prices may be starting to stabilize after months of sharp increases, obviously brought on by the H1N1 virus. But also store owners are saying that implications of U.S. tariffs on Mexico and Canada could place further pressure on the imports. As we stand right now, there's no tariffs placed on Mexico yet. Canada's been sort of back and forth with Donald Trump. I haven't got the latest update in terms of whether he's going to be pressing ahead with, adding tariffs to Canada. But undoubtedly, as has been stated, I think, in global media, that any tariffs introduced by Donald Trump on his trading partners will have an automatic, immediate impact on the U.S.
I think they've kind of started doing it because I saw something with Ontario responding today.
Yeah, indeed. We have a caller on the line. Let's see if we can go to the phone lines first. Good evening, caller. You're on the air.
Austin.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. You're all so lonely in that studio, you and Ellio.
No, not alone at all.
We're always glad to hear your voice nonetheless.
We're trying to burn time on the good news section.
Yes.
All right. Funny enough, traffic was on my mind and you guys brought it up.
Okay.
So I'm going to say this, that two ways I'd address the traffic situation. One is that we should have more stringent testing. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
So we make sure that those that are on the road are extremely competent. Because on the simplest level, I'm on the road constantly throughout the day. And the simplest things like merging into traffic, positioning your car at the proper point in the lane to make a right turn, people cannot do this. I see people with cars the size of peanuts, and they in the middle of the lane, you can't pass them on the left. Because they will block off, and that holds up a tremendous amount of traffic. So on top of the fact that we got 20 million Honda Fits coming in the island every week, we have people that are incompetent. So we have the people in the small cars that are incompetent. We have the people in the large cars that are incompetent. So we end up with a whole pile of nothing going on the road because of incompetence. Yeah. So that my 2 cents for the traffic situation.
All right.
Barring that, we can go back to lockdown, and we're not got no traffic.
All right. That's one way of looking at it.
Have a good weekend, guys.
You too, my brother. Thanks for putting a smile on the old face. 4:57 is the time in studios, giving us just over 1 minute before we have to pause and take a break. Thanking that caller for the opinion shared. Now, the caller did make a very, very valuable point in terms of the number. And of course, in his case, he was looking at a specific vehicle make, and that was, of course, the Honda Fit.
Honda Fit. They have quite a popular name now.
They have quite a popular name, and I heard one person, a good friend of mine, and this is not a derogatory statement, but it just so happens to be a fact. They call it the Filipino Cadillac.
Oh, yeah?
Because it's so very popular.
I was just referring to it as the metal slipper.
The metal slipper. Well, metal slipper, Filipino Cadillac, they all, seem to fit together.
The reason is I wouldn't brand it to one nationality, but...
no, I wouldn't either, but it seems to be very popular amongst one nationality over the others. But that said, the Jamaicans like it too. They like to modify it, It sounds even, it becomes sort of a rally car thing. No, but to the point of the caller made in terms of the number of imports that are being brought in.
Yeah.
I know, Mr. Mario Eubanks suggested I somehow find a way to interject perhaps some of the traffic recommendations I made, once upon a time when I was doing nothing in the, Parliament. But I did have some traffic numbers, some import numbers that perhaps we can touch on a little bit. If not taking the conversation to its fullest, certainly we can address the issue of vehicle imports because you cannot address the whole traffic situation unless you address the issue of, importing vehicles.
I would enjoy sitting and talking about the traffic. I sit in traffic all the time, and I quite can't really comprehend the behavior of some people in the traffic.
Indeed. Well, we'll pick that up when Straight Talk returns. The phone lines will be open at 745-2626. But don't change that dial. There'll be more Straight Talk coming up next.
Welcome to our newsroom here in central London. We place ourselves here at a little desk right in the thick of things.
OS from the BBC.
We can catch the very latest news from our colleagues, not just in this enormous room, but also from our colleagues around the world.
I'm in the room where they're treating children.
This is a combat zone.
The situation after the typhoon is very complicated.
It was a very tense situation.
OS from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
BBC News.
BBC News.
World news from the BBC. Violent clashes.
Thick black smoke.
A tremendous legal victory.
Crucial elections.
Destructive wind.
A search and recovery operation.
A race against time.
An imminent threat.
Flying a drone over a rival team's training session.
Whatever is happening, wherever it's happening, catch up with the latest news bulletins from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM. Bobo FM. We're making Bobo FM bigger and better. We've got a brand new frequency with even more power. Retune your FM radio to 103.1 now. This is Bobo FM, the home of the BBC World Service, the most trusted news source in the world. Now in our new home of 103.1 FM. This is Bobo 103.1.
For business, they say location, location, location. But really, there's no better location than right here, right now on your mobile phone or laptop. Buy and sell your pre-owned gear where the island is searching online. Buy and sell on ektrade.com. That's ektrade.com.
Across Cayman on 103.1 FM, online, and on your smart speaker. Powered by Health Services Authority, the home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo 103.1.
Hello, I'm Eileen McHugh with the BBC News. Syria's interim president, Ahmed al-Shara, has said his government will pursue the remnants of former President Bashar al-Assad's regime and bring them to trial following 2 days of violence in the coastal region of Latakia. A war monitoring group has accused government forces of summarily executing more than 130 civilians from the Alawite minority. Syrian activists in Latakia told the BBC the massacre had left the community traumatised. We have voiced his comments at his request for fear of reprisals.
They entered the villages, too many villages. The most famous genocide was committed in Al-Muqtariya village. About 30 people were killed. Families, father, mother, sons, daughters were killed by those people. They are feeling so fearful. They are in a state of shock, in a state of horror. They don't know what to do. There is no government or state who is ready to help them, to protect them.
President Trump has again criticised Ukraine's attitude towards peace negotiations, saying Kiev was proving more difficult than Russia. He also defended Russia's air attack on Ukraine overnight. It was a contrast to his earlier comments, as Tom Bateman reports.
His positions have yo-yoed from first threatening already heavily sanctioned Russia with what he called large-scale sanctions and tariffs amid its intensifying bombardment of Ukraine, to within hours, saying Mr. Putin was acting as anyone else in that position would. Mr. Trump said he was frankly finding it more difficult to deal with Ukraine and added he didn't know if the Ukrainians wanted to settle the war. Next week, the president's senior officials will travel to Saudi Arabia to meet Mr. Zelensky amid the growing pressure for him to sign up to Mr. Trump's demands.
A US pathologist has said the Hollywood actor Gene Hackman died from natural causes about a week after his wife, the classical pianist Betsy Arakawa, who died of a rare infectious disease. Their bodies were found in their home in the state of New Mexico last week. The president of South Sudan, Salva Kiir, has appealed for calm across his country after soldiers were killed when 2 UN helicopters evacuating troops came under fire. The incident came after clashes in Upper Nile State between the army and a militia loyal to the vice president and former rebel leader Riek Machar. Will Ross reports.
President Salva Kiir blamed forces loyal to the first vice president, Riek Machar, for the attack on the helicopters and said South Sudan would not return to civil war. But that's exactly what's at risk. The International Crisis Group has called on the UN to prepare its peacekeepers to save civilian lives. It warns of large-scale ethnic massacres if the situation is not quickly contained. 7 years after they signed a power-sharing agreement, the stability of South Sudan depends once again on the actions of Salva Kiir and Riek Machar.
World News from the BBC. Yemen's Houthis have told Israel that unless it allows humanitarian aid into Gaza within the next 4 days, they'll resume their attacks on the country. Earlier this month, Israel blocked aid from entering the territory to pressure Hamas to accept an alternative ceasefire arrangement. The Houthis began their attacks on international commercial shipping in 2023 in solidarity with Palestinians in Gaza. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has been quoted as saying there can be no talks on Tehran's nuclear program while the US makes threats and applies maximum pressure on the country. Speaking at the Oval Office, Mr. Trump said he would like to reach an agreement with Tehran. A federal court in the United States has sentenced the son of one of Mexico's most powerful cartels to life in prison for drug trafficking and illegal possession of weapons. Ruben Oseguera Gonzalez was once the second in command in the Jalisco New Generation cartel. Our America's regional editor Leonardo Rocha reports.
Ruben Oseguera Gonzalez, who's 35, will be transferred to a federal prison in California, where he was born and where he's due to spend the rest of his life. El Menchito, or the Little Peasant as is better known, was extradited from Mexico 3 years ago. He has been convicted of smuggling tons of cocaine into the United States. His defense argued that he was forced by his father to join the Jalisco New Generation cartel at the age of 14. Nemesio Oseguera Gonzalez, known as El Mencho, is the cartel leader and Mexico's most wanted man.
NASA's astronaut Sonny Williams has handed control of the International Space Station to the Russian cosmonaut Alexei Ovchinin. Miss Williams and her fellow NASA astronaut Butch Wilmore have been stuck in space since last June after complications with their spacecraft. The duo are expected to return to Earth by next week at the earliest. BBC News.
Opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And welcome back, K-Man. I'm your host, Austin Harris.
And I'm Ellio Solomon, and welcome back to Straight Talk right here on 103.1 FM. The number to call here in the studio is 745-2626. That's 745-2626.
Or if, of course, you want to chat with us on WhatsApp, we have a WhatsApp number as well. You can dial 928-2562, 928-2562, and either send us a voice note, which we will play on air, or you can send us a traditional WhatsApp text. We are being brought to you live on your radio dial, as Ellio just mentioned, on Bobo 103.1 FM, but also simulcasting on YouTube by the search words Straight Talk Radio Show or on Instagram vis-a-vis the Rec Room 345. And hopefully, we keep saying this, but maybe on our anniversary on Monday, we might find a workaround to the Facebook stream. But we're still diligently working on that every day.
Working on that. Yeah, we're working on that. We're working on it.
We are.
You know, on this, on the issue about public or traffic, you know, I made a proposal in 2017. It was on my manifesto. But of course, I mean, I understand, you know, you gotta attend a certain amount of funerals and weddings around here. But I really think that as a solution, we need public transportation. And I proposed and I propose that we should implement a monorail system. And let me first of all say that I think that as a developing country or a developed country like Cayman, it is just sad that we have to have so many light poles, so many wires all in the air, and it just really doesn't make much sense that every time you build a road that you have to be digging it back up so you can let Water Authority put something in. And I remember the cost of this at the Tibbetts Highway at one point in time. I don't know why you're smiling, Austin. But
just a comment that was shared.
It was somewhere around something ridiculous like $14,000 a linear foot. Some nonsense in terms of building the roads. I know that sounds astronomical, but do the math, right?
Well, I can tell you in 2019, the specific cost was $1,000 per linear foot, or $3 million.
$1,000 per linear foot?
$1,000 per linear foot.
You sure that's what it was?
$3 million a mile.
Oh, okay.
A public road.
Okay, well, I guess it depends on how much swamp you get. But either way, I think you should have a monorail system. And let me just cursorily suggest that I think if you implement a monorail system, and I remember looking at this years ago, a couple decades ago, it was something like $30 million a mile. Now, that sounds like a lot of money. But first of all, bear in mind that I think that you could, if it's done correctly, my humble opinion is, I don't see why it can't even accommodate, one, your electrical means. It could also, in my humble opinion, possibly do the same thing with water, which means you don't have all of these challenges that you have now. I think it also offers us something that's almost weatherproof. The big problem with anything in a hurricane in Cayman, you got winds and you got water. Water being probably the biggest challenge, right? This thing's going to be out of the water. The footprint is going to be small. You got in Department of Environment, for example, complaining, oh, don't dig down in there. You're going to hurt the lime lizards and swamp. And here's small footprints that, you know, rather than having an entire road, 2 or 3 carriages, right? And I just really think it's something that we should entertain.
Sure.
And I think when you look at the cost, I don't think it's going to be that much. And quite frankly, for me, I really don't see the need. You know, if I'm going to East Enya, you know, I got to carry my hay. Well, I don't want that on the public transportation. But outside of that, I would love to be able to get up and catch a proper bus or even a monorail. I would love that.
Sure.
And I don't see why we can't do it. Like, what, I mean, is it really that we're lacking that much of thinking, or am I just off? I mean, I'd love to hear from you, but I really think that we could put a monorail system in place.
Sure.
And we could be the first Caribbean country to actually do it. Assuming the environmentalists don't have a problem with it.
Well, you know they're going to have a problem with it.
Yeah, well, I'd like to hear what the problem is. But I really think that that is something very good for Cayman. We should be, more and more of us, trying to push towards a monorail system or a public transportation system, as opposed to getting up and everybody trying to have a car.
Yeah.
And don't even get me on the argument about how people are performing in traffic. Again, I'm going to say it. I don't want to necessarily, slash anyone. But come on. I saw right on Linford Pearson Highway. I'm heading out of town, and I'm getting near the First Assembly Church. And there's 2 Jamaicans parked in a truck right in the middle of the road. I don't know what they were doing, exchanging numbers, I don't know, setting up a date. I have no idea.
People do just stop in the middle of thoroughfares.
Yeah, this is right in the middle of the road. And it's like, where is a police when you need one, right?
You never see one. Never.
Talk about MIA.
Never see a cop car on any of our major roads over any period of the day. They must travel at night.
Is that night? Is that what it is?
I don't know, but I don't see them in the daytime. And last couple of weeks, I've been doing a lot of driving for whatever reason.
Yeah, well, either way, the bottom line is, I mean, there needs to be some bit of control on the traffic. Well, and I don't know why people can't honestly be a little bit friendly. And I'm going to just finish this. I just remember having a discussion with someone, and I said, perhaps if you change your perspective to one that the roads are actually a way to help all of us to get where we're going.
Yes.
Yeah, like in other words, it's not just built for you to get where you're going, but it actually works a little bit better if everyone can get where they're going.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't see why we can't, I call it the zip it, you know, like a zipper. Everyone's just just let everybody in. It's one at a time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're really not going to save that much in time in terms of how you're going to get to work because you let one car in front of you. The world's not going to end.
It's not going to end, but certainly, you know, when you're stuck in traffic and you're behind somebody else's exhaust for, you know, 4 or 5 miles
with no window up, no AC,
your humanity starts to fade and road rage starts to kick in, and we're starting to see a number of these incidents taking place across Cayman roads. Well, I don't disagree with your notion of a monorail, and to your point, you know, certainly solutions should be a priority because otherwise we're going to continue to be facing traffic, whether it be in the mornings when school starts again. It's been that's a nice thing about Easter and Ash Wednesday is that, the schools are closed. So this week, traffic has been a breeze. But when they open up again, we're going to have some issues. But prior to the break, we were talking about the number of Honda Fits and talking about the issue of traffic specific to the Ag Show and, of course, the wider ongoing discussion on traffic jams. Well, in 2018, talking about my past life, I was an MP, and I moved a private member's motion asking the government of the day to, form a committee that would consider some of the major causes of the unbearable traffic jams that persons were experiencing at the time, and report back to government with some recommendations.
Right.
Thankfully, that private member's motion passed, and the action plan was approved. And of course, the usual case when you make when you volunteer a good idea is they usually put you in charge of that good idea.
Yeah.
And so said, so done.
Yeah. We punish ideas with hard work.
With hard work, with more hard work. So I was fortunate, though. I don't take it as a negative at all. It was a wonderful experience. But more importantly, I was fortunate to chair a committee, both of MPs, members of the civil service, and persons in the private sector, who did some really important work, starting as early as 2018. And we had, in fact, made a presentation to caucus just before. And I mean, I'm literally on the heels of the COVID pandemic descending upon all of us. And that's where, unfortunately, the conversation ended. COVID shut down a lot of things, and this traffic management plan was one of them. And we could spend the time going through all of it, but specifically as it relates to some of the statistics that were gained at that time. And again, I had full access. This wasn't like we were talking about it on Crosstalk or now Straight Talk, and having to draw our own evidence and dig deep to find the numbers. I had the full access of all the government bodies. So whether it be DVDL or customs or whatever the case may be, they were at the beck and call. So it was easy to gather this information. And though these figures may be considered dated by today's timeline, certainly a reasonable and logic-thinking person who has lived in Cayman more than 5 minutes will know that these figures have only increased now that we're at 2025. But if you go back to 2018, the Department of Vehicle and Driver's Licensing, or DVDL, recorded some 42,459.
Hold on a second.
You gonna stop me again?
I am gonna cut you. You got your haircut, man.
I did get my haircut. Really? We'll talk about that next. Don't interrupt this conversation for a haircut, dude.
All right, good, cool.
So the DVDL recorded 42,459 vehicles registered as roadworthy in the Cayman Islands. However, there was an additional 37,406 vehicles which were identified on the register as either being unlicensed or deemed unroadworthy or even potentially derelict, bringing the total number of vehicles on the official register in 2018 of 79,800.
I do remember you on that vehicle issue.
865 vehicles. Now that, at the time, the population in Cayman was just over 63,000, 63,415 to be precise. That means out of that population, that 79,000 equated to approximately 1.2 cars per person, man, woman, and child.
Sure.
All right, so very significant numbers. But to the caller's point in terms of, what dealing with traffic relative to the Ag Show, he brought up the mention that, the number of imports, particularly in Honda Fits. Well, in 2017, this country was importing, on average, 408 vehicles per month.
How much?
408. vehicles per month, for a total of 4,294 vehicles in 2017. In 2018, we were doing 398 per month, a bit smaller volume, but the overall number in annual imports grew to 4,457.
Right.
In 2019, we imported a whopping 420 cars per month, or 5,298 for the year. And I said COVID came in 2020, but right as we shut down, and I was tracking these numbers right up to the very last day, we had reached almost 2,000 cars at the midway point in 2020 when COVID landed on our shores. And again, when we consider that this population has grown now to 85,000 persons, and we see the state that exists on the roadways today, we can naturally assume, without it being too much of a stretch to the imagination, that these figures have gone up and not necessarily gone down. Now, we have to ask ourselves, what are some of the consequences of that traffic in the Cayman Islands, whether it's Ag Show or, more importantly, when it is, every day of the week? Well, number one, there's lesser mobility, which of course results in, a working individual perhaps spending more time in their vehicle than they do in their office. There is, of course, the increase in transportation costs because you're creating more wear and tear in your vehicle because, again, you're in it more often. There are environmental costs, which is reflected in both the noise and air pollution. Again, you can easily understand, with mufflers and, whatnot. We have no air quality standard rules in this country, so to speak, so it's all just going into the air. And when it's not going in the air, those persons who are driving with their windows down, they're breathing this in, which, of course, presents personal consequences to the individual. There's anxiety, there's physiological challenges, there's the issue of anxiety and frustration, which, of course, as we discussed a little while ago, leads to road rage. But there's also physical harm. You sit anywhere for too long, particularly as you get older. Your legs go to sleep, it causes poor circulation problems, and, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And again, last but not least, the vehicles themselves. There's wear and tear in the vehicles. They break down more. They're in the shop more. And after a while, a new vehicle that probably had a shelf life of 15, 20 years has now, gone kaput in under 12. So all of these things work together to create a significant issue with the number of vehicles we import in this country. And as difficult as it may be to swallow and accept, no traffic management plan now or in the future can begin without a serious conversation on certain import restrictions. And that was the first recommendation we made, and we gave 10 recommendations of the committee. And at some point we'll go through them. If you want, I can go through them now. But certainly public buses, and the parking ride notion, which was tried at the Ag Show, was a part of those recommendations. But the bottom line is we can't continue to pave our way out of traffic congestion.
No,
that is a fact.
Complete nonsense. And again, I haven't researched it, but I remember back in the day when you and I were on the radio, it was somewhere around, how many kids coming out of high school every year? Wasn't it something like 800 or something like that?
Somewhere in that region,
New school leavers. So even if you just want to use that as a number, you've got X amount of persons that very quickly will be getting in a car. And if you do the math on even just 800, 800 persons times 15, that 15, by the way, is approximately the length of a car.
Right.
That's 12,000 feet, divided by 5,280. So what you pretty much have is 2 miles, over 2 miles of traffic leaving school every year, okay? This is just ridiculous. You can't possibly continue like that. So why somebody hasn't had an idea to sit and say, listen, we really need to look seriously at public transportation, I have no idea. But again, like I said, I think we should go in the direction of a monorail.
Yeah.
And I think again, from a flooding standpoint, from a wind standpoint, you can have it as a tourist attraction in the middle of the night while you're sleeping. I don't care. Late at night, tourists touring the island, just skimming the skyline in a monorail. And for every good reason, I think it makes sense. And I just did the math because you said it was $4,000 and something dollars a foot, right?
$1,000 a linear foot.
Oh, honestly,
$3 million
I don't know where you get those numbers from, but
yeah,
we got to check them out.
that was those numbers in 2019 would have been provided by both the NRA,
Which road was this, by
the
the way?
NRA and the Ministry of Planning.
Do you know what specific road that was by any chance?
I don't know what.
I
road,
remember.
I don't know what road they were building at that time. It could have been 2019. I'm guessing here. Maybe the road that now leads to Indigo and whatnot. The further extension.
Well,
of
you see, that's the thing is, I remember discussing this to the Tibbetts Highway, and if you remember, there were some areas there all around where you had to hire all those different areas. There's a lot of fill and stuff that was required. But anyway, we'll get the numbers. But even if you go presently on the numbers that I had from probably 2 decades ago, you're still talking about $5,000 a linear foot. I think it's a direction we should go. It, to me, has a beautiful look. I remember going to the Walt Disney Way back in the day and seeing the monorail system. It looked absolutely elegant. It was very classy. I think Cayman should move in that direction.
Well, you were talking about the cost of road building, and whether it be $1,000 a linear foot or $5,000 a linear foot, $3 million a public mile, or $10 million a public mile, without a doubt, again, I think you would agree.
Maintenance not included, but yeah.
Maintenance not I'm glad you brought that up, because that's the point I wanted to make. Because also during that period in 2018 to 2019, some startling statistics and or trends came to our attention as the committee. And I'm going to give it to you in terms of road building.
Sure.
Now, again, we're going to go even further back, but you'll see the point emerge. In 2007, way back into distant history, the country was spending approximately $26 million a year in new road construction and a further $4.9 million in road maintenance or recurrent expenditure for a total spend on the roadways of about $31 million a year. If we fast forward 10 years from 2007 to 2017, the spend was much different. We were now spending around $5 million a year in new road construction, but almost twice that amount in road maintenance for a recurrent expenditure. We're spending $9.9 million in 2017 compared to $5 million spent in new roads. In 2018, we saw a similar trend. We were spending about $5.2 million in road construction and a further almost $10 million, but $9.7 million in road maintenance. What was contributing to that shift in trend from building new roads to low road maintenance to now fast forward to modern day Cayman, less new road building because the majority of whatever is budgeted for road repairs are done in recurrent expenditure or road maintenance. And again, in a word, traffic. More cars on any number of new roads, creating that overload. As you know, roads have a carrying capacity. They all do. And to your point, whether some roads need more fill to build up or others need less, depending on the ground substrate, all of these roads have a carrying capacity, which is why they recommend particularly heavy equipment, only run on certain times and certain roads because of that impact. It is clear that in the decade, if not 2 decades, of road building and population growth and the issue of traffic, that it is more effects than just the road rage and the delays being held up in traffic every morning, but the longer, bigger picture cost as to how this one small, frustrating inconvenience can mushroom immensely into cost to the country to operate. So whether it be a monorail, whether it be more buses, whether it be, carpooling, or some other recommendations, again, import restrictions. You cannot have a conversation and be serious about reducing traffic in Cayman unless you seriously look at putting import restrictions on somebody or all of us. But that and a combination of other things, I believe, is a workable way forward. Now, again, I was very pleased of the work of the committee. I think the work we did was comprehensive, and the solutions we put forward, which I believe at one stage or the other were even published in the Compass for anybody looking and asking themselves, well, gee, what did you do when you were in office last time? Because you did nothing.
I know you.
What is the pint? Well, the pint is that if you look it up, it's a matter of public record. Whether you witnessed it, remember it or not, does not matter to me. But this work was important work, and it yielded some very good recommendations. But unfortunately, like a lot of things in government, they sit on shelves. And I will just say one thing in closing this conversation. I did get a phone call. So the elections took place in April, May of 2021. And by July, 2 months afterwards, I got a phone call, a text message from the then premier, interested because he had heard about the Traffic Management Committee, the recommendations made to caucus, and asked, whether I could, send them a copy. I said, well, I didn't need to send you anything. It's with your ministry. I asked them, but if you certainly hit a roadblock, I'll have no problem in sharing it with you, because it's not, for me, it does not matter who gets the credit for the solution, but more importantly, the people who are traversing those roads. And in that case, there was, anybody east of Prospect. So I did have an interest in seeing it solved, if not, for lack of a better word, for my own inconveniences. I want to see it solved.
I do recall you.
It was asked, and then it just sat even longer. So it's there, if anybody wants to pick it up again.
I do recall you actually dealing with that. I also remember giving persons who weren't necessarily licensed, I think people giving them a break or something to that effect. But either way, I'm looking at these costs, right? Just continuing on with this propagation of educating, lighting, and elevating as we listen and perhaps discuss possibilities, alternatives to the traffic. So if you looked at road construction, this one is saying that the east-west arterial extension, an 8-mile extension, is projected to cost an approximate $234 million.
Wow.
All right. So now if we go do the math on this, let's do the math. $234 million divided by 8 miles is 29,250,000. Divide that by 5,280 feet, which is what a mile was when I checked last. It's 5,539. So you're paying then on that road the projected cost, and not that government ever has overruns, Austin.
But just curious, in those projected costs of 200 plus million, did any of that money constitute road purchase or compulsory acquisition? Because there may be.
I don't know, but again, it all comes into the road.
It just changes the breakdown of numbers, but you're not wrong.
But no,
it's a lot of money to build a road.
The same thing happens no matter what you're doing. If you got monorails, whatever, there's a cost, right?
Right.
And so the thing is that with the road, if I've got a purchase, which is why again you had the Honorable Linford Pearson at one point in time with a master ground transportation plan that said, hey guys, I know it sounds in the future, but let's sit and decide where we want roads and purchase the land now. Ahead of time. Oh, well, was he punished for that?
He was punished for that.
What were you doing?
What he wanted a genuine out of the box innovative idea?
Whoosh.
What are you doing? You're not the government to work. What's wrong with you?
Yeah, whoosh. Anyway, so you're still looking at about $5,539 a linear foot.
Yeah.
So coming it down, again, talking about the monorails, I think it's a feasible idea. And I'm just roughing it out, of course. You can get all the experts in on it. But if you look at it and recapping, possibility of being able to have water there, which means you don't have constantly digging up roads to a great extent. Electricity. Something that is a much more, I think, and bear in mind what happened with Hurricane Ivan. What Hurricane Ivan showed us, a lot of us lost our cars, right? I mean, in my area, the water went up like 6 feet. I mean, it's in your house.
Yeah.
So here you're dealing with wind, you're dealing with water, providing a nice, slick, elegant transportation, and again, something that can be even used for tourist attraction and a myriad of different things. I think we have to start going in that direction. You can't be that possibly stuck on your cars. If the traffic is so bad, we should be embracing the idea. And just on the rough numbers, you can see it's not going to be much difference, even though I'm using numbers from 1 or 2 decades ago. It's not going to be much different than what we're paying for cost of roads. And to my colleagues, Austin's point, as the land increases in terms of the prices, it's not going to get any cheaper on a per linear foot cost to get a road.
No. Well, I found an article that appeared in an older Cayman Compass publication, and I'll give you the date of the publication next.
Wouldn't be from 1995 or something.
I don't know. I'll look in a minute. I don't want to move from where I'm at right now because it makes the point. But it proposed 12 different recommendations for traffic, everything from mopeds to a monorail. As a matter of fact, in a number 1 through 12, monorail appeared as number 9, and it said, and I quote, one of the boldest and most expensive ideas to be pitched as a potential solution to the traffic
Maybe
problem.
someone was looking at my
is
manifesto.
The
What year was
monorail
that?
offers some significant advantages over other forms of public transport. The track could be channeled through the central reservation of existing highways or elevated above the central mangrove wetlands,
Right.
limiting the environmental and flooding impact of routing a road through the ecological heartland of Grand Cayman. The ability to bypass traffic completely would be enough incentive for most in the eastern districts to get out of their cars, and if designed correctly, it could carry mopeds and electric bikes for onward journeys. So,
Absolutely. What year was that?
I'm gonna tell you. It was actually November 23rd, 2022. So it wasn't.
I pitched my idea in 2017.
Well, it took a few years for it to hit.
You got to give them
mainstream.
time.
Somebody found it in a dusty shelf somewhere, blew off the cobwebs and said,
Took
"Hey,
them 15 years to prove that Einstein was right. Not that I'm Einstein,
what a
by the way.
beautiful idea!" And all they did was rub out the idea of the original author.
Yeah, just put a new color on it.
Put a new color on it and say, "Look what I came up with."
Yes, look like that.
Yeah,
Look
no,
at
in this
that.
country, you gotta again. If you don't care who gets the credit, there's no limit to what we can achieve, and we just want to see some of these ideas either examined further or pen put to paper and see them implemented.
Honestly, it needs to be looked at because to me, I believe it or not, I'm pretty sure I'm being branded as the anti-environment guy. I love the environment. And to me, if you can put in a monorail system, you're talking about a very small footprint. DOE or no environmentalist should be concerned about losing iguanas or lime lizards or anything. The footprint is so small, right? It can almost be built. If you got a water section there, it's fine. But put the footprint in the water. It doesn't matter, right? And like it says, zipping above the trees, carrying you right straight through town, I don't know. Eating up some of these light poles that makes the place look so unsightly. Electrical wires and maybe cutting out some of the water digging. Who knows? I think it's a great idea. Of course. I would think it's a great idea.
Yeah, of course you would. Can't imagine why you would.
Yeah, I don't know why I would
I
think
don't know
that's
why
a
you
great
would think it's not.
But back onto it, Austin. I know you're trying to get away from it, but you got your hair cut.
Yes,
Congratulations.
no, I'm glad you noticed. I was wondering if you would.
I know how horrible it feels when you have that shaggy thing going on.
Yeah, well, thankfully neither one of us will ever have shaggy hair. But we do notice when it gets too long. You can feel it, you can see it.
Yeah.
It just doesn't sit right, to coin a phrase from the ladies. But yeah.
Somebody's saying our YouTube is still not streaming. You need to check it out. Yeah. What happened?
What to tell you.
It looks like it's streaming.
It looks like it's streaming on our end. I got confirmation. I can tell you.
We're plagued with technical issues.
I got a confirmation going back to 4:45 that we were up and running. So
all righty.
Unless it's gone down now, but yeah, if you're having problems picking us up on YouTube, Straight Talk Radio Show is the name of the link. You can just search for that. Certainly, if we're not online, we want to hear from you, so that we can obviously raise an alarm, and otherwise get somebody to work on it for me. But of course, it's Friday. A lot of people went home at 4 o'clock, so I don't suspect we'll get much joy in terms of it being repaired if it is down. But from what I have been told, it should be up and running just fine.
So we'll be lobbying the new government, whoever that is, be working towards monorails. Well, somebody sent me a video here, a picture of the video.
Yeah. It looks fantastic. Men in Black today.
So I don't know.
That's what I was smiling at. A writer, or viewer, sent a comment with a picture of the Men in Black movie poster.
Was that what it said?
Because apparently we are looking at the video now. We both decided to wear black or dark colors. We got the memo. We got the memo today. Today is in honor of Johnny Cash. The original Man in Black, for you country lovers out there. Old habits die hard when it comes to country. We spent a number of years working for a country station, and it just so happened that we were one of the few that actually didn't mind country. But yeah, it kind of sticks.
Remember that lady when she called in that day? She was saying, Austin and Ellio, when you guys are tuning out, she says, play that song, what's it called? The one with the putting the ring on the wrong finger.
Oh, yes, he put, I put the right.
I put a golden band On the right, left hand this time.
There it is. There it is.
And the right, left hand put a golden band on mine. That was the song she wanted.
That was very good. Listen, if it doesn't work out for us in
we'll start
in
singing.
Straight Talk, we're gonna start singing, baby. Because
we're
I'll sell tickets
multi-talented
for that voice.
We're multi-talented. Hey, we can do it.
We are. 745.
My brain and your looks, Austin.
Sure, I tell you what, boy, unstoppable, right? Unstoppable. You're much too generous.
Yeah.
745-2626 is the number in studios. It is a open mic Friday.
And we're having fun.
And we're having a great time.
I don't know about you guys, but we're enjoying ourselves in the studio.
You are streaming perfectly fine, is the response over WhatsApp.
Yeah, from an awesome...
Mucho gusto. Thank you very much. You got to check your sources, Ellio. They are fibbing to you.
No. I got conflicting sources here because one says it's not broadcast and the other one said it is.
Maybe they might want to check their internet connection.
Hey,
like automated voice, please check your internet connection.
Hi.
Unplug and plug it back in again. Hit reset. Give up, throw it out the window, and go listen on your radio dial. That might be an option.
I just thought of a very stupid comment someone made. I mean, I don't want to say they're stupid, but it was a very stupid comment. But anyway.
Well, it wasn't stupid. It was just incorrect. But yeah.
No. There's a difference between incorrect. I gotta show it to you one of these days. When we're off air.
When we're off air. Okay,
yeah,
fair enough. Well, that's not too much longer from now. Time in studios, 5:30.
I read it the other night.
5:38 is the time in studios, giving us just over 20 minutes before we have to pause and take another commercial break.
It could be kind and so silly. But anyway.
What are you talking about?
The silly comment I read a couple of nights ago.
Oh, that you have to share off air?
Yeah. I'm thinking about it because I don't like calling people out,
Okay, fair enough. Well, yeah, we'll definitely have a look at it.
But it definitely goes in the silly box, that's for sure.
It goes in the silly box? No, yeah. Silly's, there's a time and place for everything. I like silly. Silly sometimes breaks up the monotony of the days.
You won't like the silly.
I won't like the silly?
No, you won't like the silly.
All right.
They're silly and then they're silly.
They're silly and then they're just stupid.
Plain silly.
What were you thinking?
Yeah, I said stupid at first, but I was trying not to be too harsh.
Well, it's the ones that, and I get them from time to time where they share, quote unquote, the horrific images of, accidents or disasters. And of course, you don't know this when you click the link and you open it and whatnot. And then, of course, your eyes are greeted to a site that really you didn't have to see, and you have to question the thought process of your friends who sent it to you. But they always end up the same: misery loves company. So, whatever it was made their eyes bleed. And of course, the first thought they had was, "Oh, let's share it with my friend." So
torment him.
Who doesn't want to see it either? But he'll open it because it came from you. Yeah.
You remember they had that joke one time. It was some, I don't know who the comedian was, but basically he says, "You ever notice," he says, whenever people taste something bad, they want you to taste it. Oh God, this tastes like piss. and then they hand it to you, right?
Yeah, taste it.
But
try it.
But if oh my God, try this. But if it's something good, this is delicious, and they just keep drinking.
Well, see, again, you just proven my point that misery loves company. But you're right; it is human nature to think it's horrible and
oh my God,
automatically encourage your friend to taste it as well.
Yeah.
So you both can be miserable. 745-2626 is the number. What do you want to talk about next, Ellio?
I don't know, Austin.
Oh, let's talk about the soaring cost of health care. An article appeared.
Yeah, there was that thing by Mr. Saunders put out there talking about
that. Yes.
I want to talk about that one.
You can talk about that one. Go for it.
Well, it was talking about the fact that we need to set aside some funds for the elderly and for the younger persons in relation to health care. Well, first of all, I think that healthcare is an issue, and I remember actually working, again, magical year 2017, sitting with good persons like Mr. Marvin and coming up with some figures. And let me tell the public, I'm going to actually see if I can find that, because I did some math. And honestly...
You and math again.
Yeah, the math. Math doesn't lie, Liars figure.
Old hard numbers.
But figures don't lie.
Figures rarely lie.
Yeah. And the thing of it is that you can really provide health care in this country. What's that?
Wasn't that a popular statement coined by Kurt Tibbetts?
No, that wasn't. No,
that wasn't his.
No, that wasn't it.
All right. Well,
there was one that made the headline in the papers, but that wasn't a great one.
Wasn't.
I think it was "The Country's Broke." Yeah, that one didn't go over.
That one didn't go over very well.
No. But you leave my good friend alone.
It's all in the presentation. He was my good friend as well.
He was being honest.
Yeah.
But anyway, the thing is that to me, you can really provide health care at a very reasonable cost, okay? I honestly think that you can. We did the math, and I think it would just be a matter of somebody being very creative. So the whole idea, first of all, Mr. Saunders, in terms of, setting aside money, having a fund, I think is a good one.
Mm-hmm.
What I didn't like was when, at least initially, I don't know what the details, because I think that was just a snippet put together by himself or his marketing group.
Yeah.
But there was the whole issue about the taxes that concerned me, right? I think it was starting off about taxing a certain group of people, whether they be foreign nationals or wealthy foreign nationals. I just want to raise the alarm bells again, because it's my personal position.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care how it starts. What I know is how it ends.
Yeah.
And once it starts, it will not stop. We will all be paying taxes. And I do not want to see for people, especially the Caymanian people, paying land tax. That means all of us lives in servitude. You can't possibly escape the financial system. Okay? You can't have a piece of land and say, I'm going to retire and I'm just going to farm some bananas and some mangoes and live off my land. No. You will have to be working in order to keep paying for your land. If you don't, then you lose it. So that's eternal servitude. I don't think you should want that. So I hope that was not the issue. I hope that part has been dropped. But if it's just a case in terms of finding a way to create a fund and to publicly fund that in a reasonable way, I think it's a good idea. Mm-hmm. It was something similar to that I did when I was in office on the education fund, which I don't think necessarily anything happened with that one either. But either way, ladies and gentlemen, it is a discussion. I will go and research and see what actually happened, because I'm only seeing the one piece of clipping from what Mr. Saunders sent out. But if it is a case about funding with respect to taxes, then clearly it doesn't have my support. But if it's just an issue of trying to find some creative ways, charities, and the list goes on, that we can provide funding for elderly and for young persons, particularly when it comes to health, who could argue with that? Can't argue.
Yeah.
I see that I'm getting something here now. This is Mr. Leon Gold, I think. Red Bay tomorrow is the day we've all been waiting for. Join us for an incredible community cleanup event. After we roll up our sleeves and make our area shine, we'll celebrate with a delicious breakfast. There's so much to accomplish, and I can't wait to see all of you there, ready to make a difference together. Let's show our love for our community. Meeting point, top of Selkirk Drive at 6 a.m. A cleanup, 6 a.m. on the 8th of March. And I'm not 100% sure of the organizer, but I am suspecting it's our good as gold fella.
Another shameless plug.
Another
and
shameless
a
plug.
freebie offered by Straight Talk, because we are community-minded.
There you go.
Or so he tells himself.
And I got another comment. Well, there's another shameless one. So you guys, even when both of you are clowning around, still much better than some of the other talk shows.
Well, thank you.
Thank
you very much.
Yeah, because we're community-minded.
We are community-minded. We are always community-minded, whether it's tongue-in-cheek or otherwise.
Yeah.
745-2626 on this relatively quiet phone lines Friday. Again, if you have a comment, an opinion, a question, a remark, it would be great to hear from you. Also, you can utilize our WhatsApp line by either sending us a voice note by dialing 928-2562 or simply sending us a traditional WhatsApp message. It is 5:45 in the studio time, giving us just over 13 minutes before we have to pause and check in once again with, I think, our final BBC News for our segment while we're here. But, of course, the hits keep on coming long after we're gone. What else is in the news? There was a article that appeared talking about, it said all 59 candidates who were nominated for office on Monday have met the legal requirement to file a register of interest submission by the deadline. However, members of the public who want to find out the true net worth, debts, and or conflicts of the current crop of candidates that they will be choosing next month won't find the full story on the register. Apparently, the requirements for disclosure are relatively limited in the first place, and those 59 candidates, including perhaps some of the incumbents, they revealed only the very basic of information, just enough to meet the deadline, just enough to meet the, again, high standard of mediocrity that is the standards in the law. But persons who are wanting to, again, view the register of interest and to see, who works where, who owns what, who may very well be conflicted in their fight for either a seat in office or some of their desires to have them, for example, be placed as Minister of Finance, Minister of Financial Services, things of the like. You won't find your answers in the Register of Interests. But again, it's more encouragement to get out and attend the meetings and participate in the election process as it happens.
Yeah, well, persons are always concerned when they're running for office, especially the more money they have. It's a big question of where, source of funds and so on and so on, and a myriad of different things.
We also saw a minister alleged to be engaging in electioneering at the agricultural show.
Oh, Lord.
Say it isn't so.
What could possibly be termed as
What
electioneering?
could be so poor about that? Yeah, I love it when they say
Well, what is electioneering? Shaking hands or what?
A politician doing things that a politician would otherwise be expected to do is considered a no-no, depending on who's looking. And of course, this appears in your least favorite media house. It says CNS readers.
Why am I not surprised?
Need I continue?
Must be a candidate they don't support.
CNS readers told us they had seen civil servants handing out promotional flyers that appeared to be electioneering on behalf of Agricultural Minister, the Honourable J. Ebanks, at the popular annual Agri Show on Wednesday. However, Deputy Governor Franz Manderson said the flyer, which was available at the Department of Agriculture tent, was setting out was setting out the ministry's achievements and other information promoting poultry standards and food security. And again, all of that may very well be completely true. They perhaps could have done this with a banner, but the promotional information also included the official photograph of the minister himself alongside those fantastic accomplishments. But again, there are persons who will be out there after this election and say, but what you did while you were there?
You didn't do anything.
You know what I mean? You didn't do nothing. So I don't have a problem with the minister putting his picture, next to the achievements that were made in one of the ministries in which he has responsibility for. Because
it wouldn't have to provide
it is what it is.
Wouldn't have to provide a picture of this, would it?
It provided a picture of him next to a checklist of, accomplishments and things like infrastructure and planning, economic growth, housing and community empowerment, transport, mobility, et cetera, et cetera.
But if this was being handed out by civil servants, then this was a government document.
This was a government document and was being handed out by civil servants. And again, the deputy governor defended it as the ministry's attempt to highlight their achievements.
Yeah.
Relevant to, of course, the activities.
I agree with the deputy governor.
At the agriculture show. I do as well. I mean, there has to come a point in time where we sort of draw the line between, what is electioneering or what is perhaps corrupt practices or a few other, adjectives that might be thrown at it. And just call it what it is, because we've seen it all the time.
Well, and again, it's
politicians being political. Oh my God, say it isn't so.
One could argue that ministers have an advantage because, again, everybody stops on, let's say, March the 3rd, but they get to continue on until the 3rd or the 29th of April, right?
Yeah.
And you might say that's an advantage, but it's just the way it is. Who's going to run the country? I guess you'd have to have civil servants replace the ministers.
Yeah.
And how can you argue that the minister talking about what him and his ministry has accomplished at the Ag Show, how is that necessarily campaigning? I guess he shouldn't shake hands either.
Yeah. Yeah.
No,
I agree with you there.
Did it say vote for me?
No, I don't believe it said vote for me.
I didn't think so.
No, I didn't. I don't think it said vote for me.
Okay, there you go.
But it's the subliminal messages,
Yeah, but then what happens?
Political.
So what happens if that was done 6 months ago?
Quite right. Very good point.
Not campaigning?
Not campaigning because it was 6 months away from a general election. You're right. Very good point.
And any good politician is going to tell you that the campaign never ends.
Yeah, that's what they would certainly say.
I know at least one friend that keeps echoing that all the time. It's once you win the election, the campaign begins.
Yeah.
It never ends.
Quite right, indeed. Sticking with politics while we're still at it, and of course the race to April 30th. Of course, with a larger grouping of parties, groups or whatever being represented in the current landscape of elected candidates, some 59 of them.
And for confirmation, aren't we down to 58?
We're down to 58 candidates now. Yeah,
one stepped out. Okay.
Yeah, one stepped out. Ms. Patricia Bryan stepped out for her race for office. But whilst a lot of folks are clamoring to join groups, in many cases, we probably may see more of that. I'm wondering whether or not we might even see a unification. So we got three major parties, if you will. I wouldn't be surprised if the closer we get to April 30th, we get a unification of maybe one of the three, sort of, either joining forces tacitly or, acknowledging that, we're agreeable to working with each other should the elections run our way. There are some who are proudly remaining just independent. Amongst those, former education minister, your friend and mine, Ralston Anglin, has said to the media that he's making his fifth run for public office, but he will be doing so on his own. He will be an independent candidate, and whilst he's no stranger to political parties and alliances, this time he says he's focused on, and I'll tell you what he says he's focused on. This time I'm thinking about one thing: service to the people of West Bay North. He said that alignment will come after the people of the Cayman Islands select all 19 representatives, and it's only then that you can effectively, rationally, and reasonably look on and say what's going to be in the best interest of Cayman and Caymanians. And I take on board that point. I think it's a solid argument that he makes. He may have an uphill battle, again, being a lone gun running for office, because the question does come, who you're going to join. Will you be opposition or government? If you're opposition, well, again, it makes life a bit more difficult to move the needles for your constituency. So obviously the goal is to be a part of the government, but if you're not part of one grouping or the next, the door may be closed to you. Who knows? But it'll be an interesting race nonetheless with the 58 candidates.
Well,
in this case, there are some independents who are saying, listen, despite what the general perception is, I'm still doing it, on my own merit, and good for them.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think on the back note of Ms. Bryan, I think it's a situation where I don't think there's anything wrong with that, and it would be almost positive to see that going forward in the future, so that when you have all these areas, 4 or 5 different candidates, if the person really thinks at the end of the day that they really don't have a chance to win, I don't think it's dishonorable to get up and to say, I'm going to bow out, and in fact, I'll try my best to push my support to this particular candidate. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, other than just tearing up votes and perhaps preventing the persons who should get elected from being elected. There's nothing, in my opinion, dishonorable about that.
Yeah.
I think there's nothing wrong with running as an independent candidate. I just think the sad reality is that it's very, very difficult. And that is unfortunate, because ultimately I think the persons who are voting really only has one obligation, and that is, I don't think you really have to technically concern yourself with who's going to form the government.
Right.
You have one, for whatever reason, the people of this country have decided to go with single-member constituency, which means that you only get to vote for one member of the board of directors as opposed to all 19, which doesn't make sense to me. But that said, in your constituency, your obligation is to make sure that you choose the best one from your constituency. And you can let God sort the rest out.
Quite right.
I think that's really your obligation, because I think when you're just getting up and thinking beyond that to say, yeah, well, I need to vote for this group for a particular part, and normally that part of vote is coming when there's something specific that you want to see done.
Yeah.
Outside is saying, I want to see something specific done. I want to make sure that I'm choosing the best candidate. So, Mr. Ralston Anglin and other persons who are running as independents, again, wishing them all the best of luck. It's not an easy challenge, because people are going to be very much influenced by things on the periphery, how much money is being spent, the amount of ads that you have, the amount of banners, the sizes, and the list goes on. People can say they're not influenced by that, but they are.
Yeah.
But best of luck.
If you are of the Donald Trump camp, in the belief that the elections are decided by which group has the most cars in attendance at their public meetings, rallies, or the otherwise, again, in another shameless and I dare say free plug, since we've been throwing them out today, why not keep it, fair and balanced?
Who could be
across
guilty
the
of that,
board?
Austin?
I don't know who could be guilty of that.
All right, speak up.
The PPM will be hosting their Meet the PPM team this Saturday. That's tomorrow, March 8th, at the Compass Green at 7 p.m. Now, I don't know what the name of that road, you have to forgive me, the road that runs adjacent to the Compass Green there by the stoplights next to Jake Scott. What's the name of that road?
Well, that's a good question. I don't really know.
I don't know either. I want to say.
I only live here.
I know, it's me too as well. I know, but I have these.
Drive
moments.
between the Compass and Jake Scott's liquor store.
Pretty much. See, that's how we used to do it in the old days. We
That's
didn't
how
have
it
road
is.
names. We gave you landmarks, and you knew exactly where you needed to be.
Yeah.
You know?
Where it gets really challenging is where you give landmarks as to where you're not supposed to go.
Quite right.
You know
quite
that
right.
house, the yellow house, the one with the green roof?
That's the one.
Okay, but don't go there.
Don't go there. You gone there, you got too far.
That's when it gets tricky.
745-2626 is the number. We have about, give or take 30 minutes left remaining in the show for this week. The phone lines will remain open all the way up until 6:30. If talking isn't your thing, by all means, join us on WhatsApp by dialing 928-2562. There you can send us a voice note or a traditional WhatsApp message. We are broadcasting live on your radio dial on Bobo 103.1 FM and simulcasting via live streaming on YouTube with the link Straight Talk Radio Show, and of course on Instagram at the Rec Room 345. We are going to pause at 58 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock and take our last commercial break, but don't even think about changing that radio dial. There is at least another 30 fantastic, riveting minutes of Straight Talk coming up next. So keep it right where you are.
With you in mind, we have your style. Find what you need down every aisle. You want saving, selection, and quality. That's why we're your home store. Home store. A.L. Thompson's. The way to make a home. The way to make a home.
If you care about your car's performance and fuel economy, you'll want to fill up with Pure 93 at Rubus. Pure 93 is the highest pure octane fuel in Cayman and will protect against engine knock, restore its power, keep your engine clean, and will even reduce maintenance expenses while meeting international performance requirements for your car. Come fuel the difference with Pure 93. Exclusively available at Rubus service stations.
The BBC's From Our Own Correspondent.
In today's Russia, no one is allowed anywhere near the political stage if they pose a serious challenge to Vladimir Putin.
Stories and reflections from our reporters around the world.
There is a major sense of insecurity here.
More people are coming in from Sudan every day.
From Our Own Correspondent from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
How can we understand the world better?
The BBC World Service is a window onto the wider world.
A vantage point from which to survey a new horizon.
News, reports, and analysis from around the world.
Stories we think matter.
Different people from different societies.
We get to the heart of global issues.
News, stories, and global perspectives from the BBC World Service.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
BBC News, hello, I'm Eileen McHugh. Syria's interim president, Ahmed al-Shara, has said his government will pursue the remnants of former President Bashar al-Assad's regime and bring them to trial after 2 days of violence in Latakia. A war monitoring group has accused government forces of massacring more than 160 civilians in the area. A local activist says pro-government fighters killed members of the Alawite minority to which Assad belongs. Lina Sinjab is in Damascus.
This is not only a challenge for the security of the country, but also for the unity of the country, because there are even calls outside Syria and inside Syria for separation, for international intervention. However, there are also lots of voices coming out to calm down the situation, calling for ending of the violence. President Ahmed al-Shara addressed the nation this evening, praised the security forces, but also vowed to follow the remnants of Bashar al-Assad and hold whoever committed crimes accountable.
Donald Trump has said he's finding it difficult to negotiate with Ukraine days after cutting off US military aid and intelligence sharing to Kiev. The president told reporters in the White House that he trusted the Russian leader Vladimir Putin and said he didn't know whether Ukraine wanted peace. Here's Sarah Smith.
Donald Trump believes that from behind his Oval Office desk, he alone can end war and make peace in Ukraine. He consistently sounds more favourable to the aggressor, Russia, and its authoritarian leader. Overnight, dozens of Russian missiles and hundreds of drones attacked Ukraine's energy and gas infrastructure, injuring at least 18 people. In his nightly address, President Zelensky says he does want to end the war. High-level US and Russian officials have already shared talks in Saudi Arabia. That was one more thing that seemed to favour the Russian side. Next week, Ukraine gets its seat at this table to meet American diplomats and discuss what they might accept in a peace deal.
Sarah Smith reporting. A US pathologist has said the Hollywood actor Gene Hackman died from natural causes about a week after his wife, the classical pianist Betsy Arakawa, who died of a rare infectious disease. Their bodies were found in their home in the state of New Mexico last week. Peter Bowes reports.
Officials say Betsy Arakawa, who was 65, is believed to have died from complications caused by hantavirus pulmonary syndrome, which is a rare but serious respiratory illness caused by exposure to the droppings of infected rodents. The symptoms are similar to the flu. Gene Hackman is thought to have died about a week later from significant heart disease, with advanced Alzheimer's disease also being a factor. The medical examiner said it was quite possible the actor, who was 95, was not aware that his wife had died in the days before he passed away.
This is the latest world news from the BBC. The Greek government has survived a no-confidence vote in Parliament over its handling of the country's worst rail disaster. After days of acrimonious debate, MPs rejected the motion brought against the centre-right government of Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis by 157 votes to 136. Yemen's Houthis have told Israel that unless it allows humanitarian aid into Gaza within the next 4 days, they'll resume their attacks on the country. Earlier this month, Israel blocked aid from entering the territory to pressure Hamas to accept an alternative ceasefire arrangement. The Houthis began launching attacks on international commercial shipping and later targets in Israel in November 2023, saying these were in solidarity with Palestinians in Gaza. The president of South Sudan, Salva Kiir, has appealed for calm after a number of soldiers, including a general, were killed when 2 UN helicopters evacuating troops were fired upon. It happened in Upper Nile State, where there have been clashes between the army and a militia loyal to the vice president and former rebel leader Riek Machar. NASA's astronaut Sunny Williams has handed control of the International Space Station to the Russian cosmonaut Alexei Ovchinin. Miss Williams and her fellow NASA astronaut Butch Wilmore have been stuck in space since last June after complications with their spacecraft. The duo are expected to return to Earth by next week at the earliest. Their plight has attracted worldwide attention. Mr. Ovchinin expressed his best wishes to the duo as they prepare to return home.
Very soon you will leave station. It was great flying, walking, relaxing together. I wish you good luck, nominal descent, soft landing, and all the best. Don't worry, you are leaving station in good hands. We will miss you.
BBC News.
The views and opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Straight Talk with your host, Austin Harris, and myself, Ellio Solomon. Just a few minutes remaining here in the studio. If you want to get in, 745-2626. That's 745-2626. And, of course, you listen to us on Straight Talk right here on your radio dial, 103.1.
And, of course, the WhatsApp lines are also available for those of you who want to save those valuable credits. You can dial 928-2562 and either send us a voice note or a traditional WhatsApp chat, a message, text message. And, of course, we will share your views, comments, and or opinions as part of the discussion. As Ellio pointed out, we are being brought to you live on your radio dial by Bobo 103.1 FM, but also simulcasting on YouTube at Straight Talk Radio Show and on Instagram at The Rec Room 345. Just to certainly recap what has been a terrific week for us here on the program. Started out, of course, with a fantastic interview with, remind me again.
Well, we started off with Mr. Gilbert McLean.
That's right. We started out with Mr. Gilbert McLean on the whole national lottery question. Then, of course, we moved on to the great, the fantastic, the terrific, and always informative Dr. Mark Lockhart as we address the issue of youth mental health and the rising troubling statistics that are certainly reason for pause. And then lastly, yesterday on part one of the immigration transition white paper public consultation discussion, we hosted, of course, Mr. Mario Ebanks, engaging on the matters of both the term limits and, in particular, the question of work permit holders hopping around from one job to the next, or, of course, being required to leave the island for a period of 1 year. We touched on briefly the now 3 different levels of Caymanian status description. I think by going from memory, one was now changing to native Caymanian, the other Caymanian by dependency, and the third proposed Caymanian by grant. Other than touching on the extended period of times in which persons can begin to apply for that, an increase by 5 years to 20 years, from 15 years to apply for Cayman status. And there was another period, an increase to 10 years from 5 years for persons seeking to apply for naturalization. We really didn't delve into that aspect of the changes comprehensively, but certainly it is something that we will be seeking to do, as well as further explanation on things like RERC, which is the Residency Employment Rights Certificate that is given to the spouse of a Caymanian usually, or the spouse of a PR and or Cayman status holder. There are some changes outlined in that document. There are 1 or 2 entirely new sections that have been proposed in the white paper. Each of those will require a separate discussion, but it is something that we will be hosting in our series conversation on the immigration white paper over the course of the month of March.
And speaking about immigration, I want to throw a couple of things out at some point. I remember there was a discussion.
Now is a good time.
Oh, no, we need more time, but definitely on another day, some discussions. When I was in office, one of the things I heard that was being thrown around was, how do you, maybe the labeling is incorrect, but I know I got it in substance. And that was the whole issue of persons engaging in marriage, right? The proposal was you give a sort of, what do you call it, like a fiancé sort of certificate or something that allows you to be able to have your fiancé and he or she be able to stay in the country for a period of time. And this would allow Caymanians to get to know the other person, if you like, rather than engaging in marriage.
Right.
Because you oftentimes hear about, the marriages of convenience.
Right. Yeah.
And I think it's a discussion that we should have. I don't know if it's in this particular proposal. I don't think so.
I don't believe I saw anything to that.
Yeah, I don't think so. But I remember it was something that was being thrown about. And I personally would love to hear what Caymanians think about that, because I think the argument was that in the absence of something like that, basically what you're doing is if a boy meets a girl or vice versa in Cayman and they like the person, then one of the only ways to get them to stay here with them is to kind of engage in the marriage.
Right.
And that oftentimes leads to something that's rushed. It ends up ending normally not so well, and people being able to brand that as yet again another marriage of convenience.
Yes.
Whereas if it was the case that you could be given some kind of a period of time of which the person could stay as your fiancé, then it gives the Cayman a chance to get to know the other person and see whether this is someone they want to tie ship up with, and for how permanent. So it's just one of those things that I think that we can discuss as well in terms of immigration.
No, indeed. Prior to the break, we were obviously sharing some announcements as it relates to some of the political candidates, some of the 58 that are vying for your vote on April 30th, talking about meetings and public appearances, as well as some departures, etc. Just a worthy mention to the Chamber of Commerce Candidates Forum 2025, which also kicks off this month, specifically the 13th of March, and running until the 9th of April. These are always an eagerly anticipated debates, and probably one of the only formal debate offerings made available to members of the public to, hear more on their would-be elected candidate. And just very briefly, we'll just share a summary of the dates and the constituencies that will be in place. So again, referring to the Chamber of Commerce Candidates Forum 2025, which likely will be live streamed over their Facebook page, but you can log on to the Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce and their website to get further details. But the event kicks off on Thursday, the 13th of March, beginning in the constituency of East End, Friday, the 14th of March in North Side, Monday, the 17th of March in Prospect, Tuesday, the 18th of March in Savannah, Wednesday, the 19th of March in Newlands, Thursday, March 20th in Red Bay, Friday, March 21st in Bordentown East, Monday, March 24th in Bordentown West, Tuesday, March 25th in Cayman Brac East, Wednesday, March 26th, Cayman Brac West and Little Cayman, Thursday, March 27th, West Bay Central, Friday, March 28th, West Bay North, Monday, March 31st, West Bay West, Tuesday, April 1st, April Fool's Day. They're actually having a debate. It's in West Bay South. Don't be fooled. There will be a debate according to this schedule. Wednesday, April 2nd, Georgetown North. Thursday, April 3rd, Georgetown Central. Friday, April 4th, Georgetown South. Monday, April 7th, Georgetown West. Tuesday, April 8th, Georgetown East. And wrapping up on April 9th with the party leader debate. So the heads of the tip of the spear, if you will, of the major groupings, they will go head-to-head in the debate scheduled for April 9th, which is being dubbed the Premier's Debate. I guess potentially these persons could very well be the next Premier. So they will be debating toe-to-toe as part of the Chamber of Commerce grand finale. But again, I think this is good.
It is good.
It's encouraging, and I really want to give my kudos to the Chamber of Commerce for continuing to host these chamber debates. It's also not their first rodeo. They've done this for a number of years, and it's always definitely worth the price of admission. Definitely worth watching.
Yeah, I just think I have thanked the Chamber for what they do. I think it is a total awesome thing. Congratulations on that, and hope it continues. They seem to be just improving it now by being able to give that sort of leadership / premier section of the debate. And again, I would encourage persons to look at it very carefully. If you have a candidate where he or she cannot show up to a debate, it's different if you're sick. But refusing to show up to a debate, I don't know. To me, that kind of speaks volumes. I don't see how they'd be really counted in my vote, to be quite honest with you. But that's something for the public to determine.
Yeah.
But to me, unless you have some major problem, I think candidates need to show up, engage in the debates so that you as the electorate can be able to listen to those persons, hear them all answering the same questions, how they respond, the substance of it, the tone of it, and everything else that you want to be able to capture so that you can help make an informed decision. So you should take it very seriously when you have candidates that don't show up.
No, absolutely. I think you make a valuable point, and certainly encouraging both voters to be there, and of course, to your point, candidates as well. This is
pretty important.
This is your show,
yeah.
So you wanna be there. You might not deem, being there in person for nomination day is important to you, but certainly missing the debates has been known to work against those who chose to, again.
So I know we didn't get onto the chicken and egg discussion, but
You are so brilliant. I was just heading there.
Are you serious? I read your mind again?
You did. I was literally scrolling back up the page to go, where is the egg conversation?
What can I say?
don't remember finishing that.
Great minds think alike.
We do think alike.
So I do
You brought it
recall.
up, so you started off.
Yeah, well, someone gave me a shout. I almost said weekend, but it wouldn't have been weekend. It just feels like a weekend because we had that
one day
Magic
off
Wednesday
weekend.
off. That kind of messed us up, right?
Mm-hmm.
By the way, yeah, we're a little tired today because we had at least 2 or 3 meetings today for me. I know you and I met once.
Today. Yeah, we met this morning. We had a busy day today.
Busy day today.
Productive day. I like days like today.
But on the eggs,
yeah.
I had someone saying, well, how is it that we're having a, avian flu or whatever going on in the U.S. and somehow that's affecting the price of our chickens, or of our eggs, and I think sorry,
really,
yeah. So I think it's an interesting discussion because again, one could argue, well, the flu is not here; it's somewhere else. Why are eggs going up? And I think that there's a couple of different responses to that. At least one that comes to my mind is that, first of all, you're going to have a higher demand to try to justify it for farmers. You're going to have all of a sudden a shifting in demand from purchasing foreign eggs to purchasing local eggs. And that high increase, let's put it that way, increase in demand, and unless you're able to match it with supply, is going to perhaps cause an increase in the price. And then I think just from even a general business perspective, persons say, hey, if the market is right now paying 75 cents for an egg, I'd be a bit of a fool to be selling mine for 25 cents, right?
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. The new crack for the next month or, maybe a little longer, is still white, but it's in the shape of an egg.
Oh,
that's where the new cartels will come up from. But seriously, though, I mean, listen, yes, it's supply and demand, and very clearly, I only laugh because, most people understand how our trade economy works.
Mm-hmm.
We import everything. All the things we find on the supermarket
Even
shelves,
garbage, apparently.
Even garbage, apparently, but that's a conversation for another day.
Yeah, okay.
Everything is imported, and certainly the impacts of markets like eggs, which are being impacted by the avian influenza or bird flu. It's not a matter just of demand increasing; it's a matter of stockpiles decreasing. The number of viable animals that are no longer infected by the bird flu, and of course, if they are infected by the bird flu, then their eggs are infected, and therefore they won't meet FDA requirements to be, exported, let alone sold on our local shelves. So it's a shortage of supply, and against the backdrop of the same high demand for this staple product, that is leading to the increased prices. Again, according to an article that was published, I think this week anyway, prices currently imported are just under $10 for a dozen, $10.99 at one of the larger supermarkets. Organic free-range eggs, the prices tend to go even higher. And that is where I think the question mark comes in terms of local eggs. Whilst there is a strong local egg market for you farmers who are producing, chickens and therefore selling them to the market. I know my mom, whenever possible, like the seasonal coconuts or mangoes that come out, we're always making sure that, we patronize our local farmers for things that are grown, produced here in the Cayman Islands. But there just doesn't seem to be enough volume to meet the high demand on our stores. And when there is, local eggs tend to be treated in the same price tag range as organic, otherwise organic imported products, and for good reason, because they're free of pesticides and all the otherwise chemicals and special coatings which make your eggs shiny. Eggs are not supposed to be shiny, but they are anyway, and that's usually because they're coated with something to make them last for the journey, that in some cases maybe thousands of miles to the Cayman Islands or otherwise. But there just isn't a big enough market of locally provided eggs to supply the market of consumers in the Cayman Islands. So like everything else, we get a major amount of the products that we consume from the continental United States. Now, whilst those bird farms may not be in the United States, maybe they're importing from somewhere else. In some cases, there's a circle. Certainly with produce, we buy from Dole out of Florida, but Dole buys from the farms in Honduras and Dominican Republic.
They have their own
Cuba.
farms there, yeah.
You know, exactly. So, you know, it goes down to come back up, only to come back to the Cayman Islands. And all of those transit points, they're taxes, cargo charges, fees, and whatnot. That adds to the price, not least of which when there is a bird flu, and that's impacting this major food staple, we are going to see price increases. But prices on eggs are going up. Hopefully they'll get a handle on bird flu. I saw a report come out today that the U.S., of course, has been dealing with the measles outbreak as well. And in particular, measles has now found its way to South Florida, which is a popular, you know, is going on in my mind. You know, that's coming next. That's coming next. And I only say this, again, depending on those of you who read your scripture. But recently we had a planetary...
Oh, that would be a great topic.
We just had a planetary alignment, which was prophesized also in the book of Revelations in terms of, you know, the signs will be seen from the skies. And again, the interplanetary alignment, which came and went, I think, January, February, which was a sight to behold, again, even to the naked eye, but the truly impressive sight would be with a telescope. But it was a beautiful sight. But some would say, again, these signs are evident, even day to day, again, depending on what books you read. But it could be the rapture. It could be World War II, III. It could be, you know, another pandemic. If you listen to The Simpsons, The Simpsons apparently have been... You know, sort of are now the oracle for what's going to happen.
Apparently
in the future.
so.
I don't know. It's ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous. But there were episodes, repeated episodes, that were ahead of their time. Kind of like you on the Jobs for Caymanians thing. Ahead of your time.
Well, boy, do you ever punish for being ahead of your time?
Boy, it's what we talked about the Master Ground Transportation Plan earlier on. And,
absolutely. There's another punishment.
There's another, again, you get branded for being innovative.
Ideas and actions are always punished.
They are. We've gotten so satisfied with mediocrity.
I had another great thought when you said World War II instead of World War III.
Tell me that idea.
I thought you could just say World War II twice. You know, by the way, I'm pretty sure some people wonder why I get in there and I make all these laughs. And, you know, I used to be serious one time. Yeah, I used to be very serious at one point. Thought that was a good thing to do. You know, you're representing the people. Keep a serious face.
Laughter's good for the
soul. But
I
think it is important to kind of give a little bit of a softer side sometimes, Austin.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Not make it all too serious, and it's good to have that little bit of banter, and I can't think of a better person to have it with, buddy.
Oh, my friend, I was thinking the same thing about you.
Oh,
I have a great time, and yeah, laughter is good. Can't be so serious all the time, and what's really special moments when you get to laugh at yourself.
There you go.
No, that's a sign of maturity, boy.
And by the way, I think the eggs are white because that's just what people like. Yeah. White things sell better. Like if you made a black egg, it probably wouldn't sell.
Probably not.
I'm just being total honest with you. I mean,
pass the smell test.
It's a sad world we live in, but it's just I'm just shooting it the way it is.
You're just shooting it the way it is.
You know, you gotta bleach your you gotta bleach your rice, you gotta bleach your eggs, and the list goes on.
Yeah. Well,
gray eggs don't sell as well. Did you know they had gray eggs?
I didn't know they had gray eggs.
Yeah, but you just don't sell those.
I just found out they had pink pineapple. I found that in the store the other day. It was pretty tasty.
Oh, Lord.
But yeah, no, I didn't know that. 6:25 is the time in studios, giving us about 3 minutes left. Really just an opportunity to say what's coming up next week. Tomorrow, in addition to be Meet Your Candidate weekend, there'll be a number of political rallies and meetings and whatnot taking place across all three of the beautiful Cayman Islands. But tomorrow is March the 8th, and that is the official launch and recognition of International Women's Month. And we here at Straight Talk, like most people around the globe, and certainly here in the Cayman Islands, will be recognizing International Women's Month this March. So much so that on Monday, we will host the first in a series of, I think, impactful and fantastic women and organizations that are making waves in the Cayman community and doing some very important work. On Monday on the program, we will host Girl Power with their director, Miss Pamela Small. Girl Power is a young girls, young women's empowerment organization that offers, amongst other things, mentoring skills, job interview skills, and whatnot. We're going to learn a bit more about that organization and what it does as we celebrate International Women's Month 2025. And, of course, we'll tell you all about the theme for this year, the objective for this year, and it gives us the unique but always welcome opportunity to embrace the female leaders in our local community.
Absolutely.
For what they're doing, and to applaud and assist them in any way we can.
And
some closing comments.
And hearing you say that gives me a great idea. I think we should be encouraging our listening audience next week to give us some submissions, give us some names of some persons that some of those females out there that are making a difference, and try to bring them here in the studio. What do you think, Mr. Harris?
I think, as usual, Ellio, that is a brilliant idea.
And hopefully not too far ahead of my time again. I don't want to miss the boat.
No, we definitely don't want to miss the boat on this thing, sure. Well, we certainly have, again, a list of our own that we can think of. But more importantly, to Ellio's point, we're here to serve you, the listening audience. So if you can think of, women-led organizations or some fantastic women who are doing some pretty amazing things in the island, and you'd like us to have them on the program, send them over.
Absolutely.
WhatsApp it to us at 928-2562. And
I can think we can put them in little labels, spin the bucket, and
absolutely
choose the top 3 or so, right?
March is a long month, and we can't fill it all with politics now, can we?
Well,
we could very easily. Yeah, come to think of
but
it.
we'll stick a lady in there every now and then.
Who are you asking to have this conversation, Austin?
We'll stick them in there every now and then.
We'll stick them there in there.
Well, women in politics this month.
That's right. So Monday, we'll kick it off as we, again, honor International Women's Day, which begins tomorrow officially worldwide. But for us here on Straight Talk, it'll begin on Monday, which will also mark a special event for us here at Straight Talk. It marks our official 1 month.
1 month anniversary, right?
Anniversary here on Bobo FM, and of course presenting this new and hopefully exciting and informative platform to you, the listening audience.
I guess that would be like a monthversary. But yeah, wouldn't be like an anniversary.
A monthversary. Well, maybe you'll have a new sound element, to mark that auspicious occasion.
Yeah, something. We'll figure something out.
I'm your host, Austin Harris.
And I'm Ellio Solomon. Thanks for joining us. See you on Monday.
See you on Monday for sure. Again, tune in to Straight Talk weekdays from 4:30 to 6:30 right here on Bobo 103.1 FM.